Hey everybody, welcome back to another Wednesday video. In keeping with the theme of these Wednesday videos, I figured I'd talk about Rick and Morty, but I've also recently watched the Cyberpunk Edgerunners anime on Netflix, and it was a great time. I'm not actually a huge fan of Studio Trigger, but I found this anime really enjoyable, and I feel like there's a similar theme between it and Rick and Morty, and that's the concept of nihilism. Nihilism is often attributed to Friedrich Nietzsche, who basically summarized that in the wake of scientific advancement, that the dependence on religion for a source of morality and guidance would eventually fade away for most people. While most these days often attribute Nietzsche to being a nihilist, it was more of a warning of what was to come. There are a lot of great videos here on YouTube talking about nihilism more in depth, but I want to talk about how it more relates to Rick and Morty and how it relates to Cyberpunk Edgerunners. In Cyberpunk Edgerunners, we see our protagonist David go through probably what's the worst day of his entire life. David's an interesting protagonist because David doesn't really seem to have a clear goal or motivation for his own life, and seems to live his life through the desires of others. He attends the prestigious Arasaka Academy because that's what his mother dreams of his life being, as being a corporate executive. But as anybody who's played the game Cyberpunk or is familiar with the entire genre, being a corporate executive does not exactly make you immune to all the problems of Night City. I have to resist the temptation to call Night City a corporate oligarchy, because the corporations very rarely actually work together in any sort of fashion to run the city. It's more of a competition between the corporations of dominance. Mostly a triad between Arasaka, Militech, and Biotechnic. It's meant to be an exaggeration of the amount of power that corporations have consolidated over time, and how the rest of the world is left to feed upon their scraps. When the concept was originally created, it was probably meant to be a dystopian, far-off sci-fi fantasy, but in modern times, Cyberpunk has proven to be prophetic in a lot of ways. We may not have our cybernetic upgrades, but we definitely have the corporate dominance. Therefore, Cyberpunk leaves you with a question. How do you find meaning to life in a world like this? Religion still exists in the world of Cyberpunk, but it's few and far between in a world where you can replace any part of your body with a machine that works 10 times better. Do you do what David's mother wanted him to do and devote your life to a corporation and serving their whims, hoping to be ruthless enough to fight your way to the top? Or do you become what Nietzsche referred to as a last man, someone so broken by the concept of meaninglessness of life and the world we live in, that you find meaning in only the simple luxuries of life, making your life as complacent and safe as possible. Nietzsche firmly believed that obstacles in life are meant to be overcome, and that we cannot truly grow without having conflict. And therefore, if we choose to live a life like this, it would be the doom of humanity. When faced with the loss of his mother, he loses all meaning. David becomes broken. He becomes the nihilist. He can no longer find value in his life in fulfilling his mother's dream. In this state, he meets Lucy. Nietzsche believed in the concept of an Übermensch, a man who rises above all the chaos and fight back against the meaninglessness of existence, to give life meaning in his own hand. The vagueness of this concept has led to it being adopted by some less than savory groups, because when life has no meaning and you must give it meaning, you can give it whatever meaning you want. After meeting Lucy, David finds meaning in his life in trying to fulfill her dream of going to the moon. In the end, he does accomplish that goal, and therefore can say in his own personal opinion that his life had meaning. While those like Nietzsche might look upon Lucy's dream to visit the moon as an attribute of a last man behavior, Nietzsche himself often found himself at odds with his own philosophy. Some would even argue that David's dependence on others to give his own life meaning is a very bad trait to have that can lead to some very big problems in your own mental health. But getting back to Rick and Morty, nobody really showcases more of a encompassing belief in nihilism than Rick Sanchez himself. Rick has said time and time again that everything is meaningless. Even his family is meaningless because he can just go replace them with another family if he needs to. He even threatens it sometimes. But in the last season, I think we're seeing more and more that this is not Rick actually believing that everything is meaningless, but trying to convince himself. While yes, it's as simple for Rick to just move on to another universe, every single universe, every single family he's lived with and experienced with has value to him, and he can't deny that. And his persistence that everything doesn't matter is him trying to cope with all that he's lost, all the times that he's buried a Morty, every time that he's lost Beth, the simple fact that none of the Beths that he's ever met were his, that his daughter is long dead and he will never really be able to replace her. This is part of why I love Rick and Morty so much, especially when it does serialized episodes, is while it seems on the surface to be a show that's just about stupid fart jokes and a teenage boy that accidentally has way too many kids, or just a simple mainstream sci-fi show with way too many pop culture references, at its core, Rick and Morty is the story of a man who's fundamentally broken by the things he knows and the people he's lost. And in season 6, we finally get a glimpse of him trying to actually find meaning in his life, meaning in his family, in his new family, and to move on from his old quest of revenge and try to finally be happy. Maybe in the end Nietzsche was wrong. Maybe it's not the Ubermensch that's trying to dominate the world around him that's the hero, the Superman. Maybe it's the man who takes simple joy in the love of his family that we should all aspire to be. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.